Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Hello America's What's Cooking. Um, it is such a great pleasure to be here where you can find us on LinkedIn Live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And without further ado, because those are always very short chats, I would like to welcome my guest today, and anybody in the audience, please feel free to give a shout out or ask questions as we have them. And Evan, welcome to our chat.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of a very busy schedule. I know you've had just a couple of events throughout Canada, which you've completed. So we appreciate your time. And before we get started, could you please just introduce yourself very briefly, as well as the organization you work for?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been an event professional. I've been an event producer for the better part of the last 10 years. I've worked in really what I call sort of a 360 facet of the industry, from vendor side to venue side to uh, in-house planner and agency side, all four aspects. And currently in my role, I'm an event producer. I'm the production manager for Diamond Integrated Marketing. I'm on the events and experiences team. So we're a full scope integrated agency based in Toronto, where our expertise mainly is content creation, events and execution, and design and creative.
And you are the right person for the topic which we are covering today, based on your long lasting experience when it comes to event experience design. So let's kick right off. What's your pet peeve when it comes to experience design for events?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. Number one, for sure, is producers who don't work in buffer time to schedules. So on we can talk about like the planning side or the guest side as well. I think it resonates on both sides of the coin. On the planning side, not putting in buffer time between gives yourself a very narrow window for error to happen, which we all know, let's be real, there will be a curveball that happens at most events that we produce. So not giving yourself that buffer time allows no recovery time for those things to happen. And then on the attendee side, on the guest side, or the delegate side of things, if they're going from session to session to session with no break in the middle, you're going to lose people at some point, because people need the bathroom, they need to go for a smoke, they need to get something to eat, they need to answer emails. So what we've always done, and what I've always done in my experience, is we intentionally put breaks into schedules so that we give people that downtime, so we're not competing with their personal time when they're on site for a bigger event.
That is so important, and we see that all the time, and speakers run over. And if you are having also a virtual audience and you have no buffer in between, then you have a lot of frustrated digital audiences which are waiting and nothing is happening. And we have to really build in those white spaces. I think this is a huge learning curve for a lot of the planners, to overprogram. I think that is a curse of our industry. And how do you see those events changing in the coming years?
Yeah, I think so. I think going into that is like the shift from virtual to hybrid or in person. I think not only are we going to see people having to relearn what it means to put on an in-person event, because we've all been used to producing for virtual, which is very different than producing for in-person or hybrid. So I think number one, people are gonna have to relearn how to produce in person and shift the mindset to go back to in-person events, and all that comes with that, from travel to logistics to, you know, delays of baggage and everything else that you don't have with virtual. So I think that's going to be one major shift. And I think also the second major shift that we're going to have to deal with going into 23 is people's comfort levels going back on site, people's comfort level traveling. A lot of companies in 22 were very cautious of how many people, how many sales reps, how many delegates they were sending to events because budgets were so tight and no one was sure what was coming around the corner, new viruses, new strains, new everything else. So I think a lot of people are going to be sending a lot of people to events in 23, but it's all about how to do so strategically, how to do so that's the most cost effective internally, and making sure you're getting your ROI on sending people to industry events or to, any other events that companies are sending delegates to.
And a lot of things you just mentioned totally resonate. Do you also sometimes have the feeling that it feels like even people who have been doing events for 20, 30 years, it feels like they're doing it for the first time now that they're back in person and have to relearn everything from basics? But you've been also doing a lot of corporate events, and you mentioned that 23 you see a lot of people returning to in-person events. You also mentioned a comfort level. I have heard also some other elements where corporate travel is going to be restricted. Do you think this is just applicable for 23 as a shift and will get back in numbers again, or do you think it will remain at an increased number of delegates?
I think 23 is going to be a transition year, let's call it. I think hopefully, fingers crossed, we're pandemic clear. Will we ever be totally free and clear of it? I don't think so. But are more people than less going to be more comfortable going to events? I think so. What that means and how many events a year they go to, that's sort of up in the air. But I think, yes, 23 will be the year that people are ready to go back on site. Going into 24, will the numbers rise? I would assume so. I think 23 will be a test year of like, can large events happen successfully and safely as a proving time for the year for the industry? Like, you look at events like IMAX and, all these NAM and NAB and all these big shows that happen in the US and around the world. This year in 22, they were probably, at, let's call it 40% pre-pandemic numbers, I would say, across the board, give or take 30 to 40% of what they were before the pandemic. I think 23 will be another year of like maybe 50 to 60%, capacity, where 24, I think, will be back to pre-pandemic numbers in full effect. So that's just, having a crystal ball. That's what my prediction is. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully those numbers are skew higher, but I think that's where I think things are going.
Actually, talking about IMAX, they have been really great in numbers,
Yeah.
and especially IMAX America. I had a feeling it was even larger
Right.
than in the past. But let's see. But what do you think will drive that change for people to actually come back to in-person events? And do you see that the event experience design which planners are offering their delegates will drive that change?
Yeah, I think the experience always drives change. I think that experience doesn't start on site. I think that experience starts from the first touch point you have with a delegate in the first invitation or the first social post that's posted announcing the dates for next year's event. So I think it starts from there. I think it's getting the hype back to in-person events, getting people excited to come back on site, getting people to not just go to an event when they're in X city, but people are calling it, I forgot the word that someone used on LinkedIn. I thought it was like pleasure with business together. It's this dual purpose trip where you're going to an event, like let's just use IMX for an example in Vegas. You're going to the event. The event's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You're staying on Friday and Saturday, and you're doing something with, maybe your spouse is coming out for Friday, and you do something together in Vegas for the weekend, for example. So it's capitalizing on your work travel for pleasure and for personal time away. I think that's so important because everyone who's traveling is, you're nonstop. You're like 12, 13, 14-hour days on the show floor to get the best experience. You need some downtime, and why not have downtime while you're at this amazing location that's not home, you would think, for most people. So yeah, I think the experience is really important, but I think also the balance between being away for work and being away to balance personal time as well, I think will be agents of change for how things happen going into 23.
And you're just confirming something our keynote speaker, Rafat Ali from Skift, said at our conference earlier in November, talking about trends for travel in 2023. And he did introduce the term of blended travel, or bleisure, like it was called before, where there is a combination of the two elements. But do you think this will be a change driven by the delegates themselves, or do you think the meeting planners should be mindful and should drive that change as well?
I think a good meeting planner knows that's going to happen, so they take advantage of it. So they're like, hey, our event is Tuesday to Thursday. We're giving you Wednesday night 3 hours off before the opening night party to go do what you want in Munich, in Tokyo, wherever the event is. Giving people that personal time when they're on site for an event is so meaningful to delegates that's where change needs to start. It needs to start from the planners, which will then, as a producer, delegate to an event like this. I'm then going to take that mindset back and incorporate that into my event experience that I'm producing for my clients. So it's this like cyclical, scenario that, like, if I see something cool that's happening on a global scale, I'm going to try to apply that to what I'm working on, so my client has the same outcome that I did when I was on site for an event.
Excellent. And one other trend which is really at the forefront for our industry, and you are mentioning a lot of times the term producer, which is really connected to that other trend. And we are talking about event tech. Event tech has exploded during the pandemic. We had a lot of event tech companies coming up, offering products, exploding in terms of hiring. And now a lot of them are again downsizing as we are returning to in-person events. What role do you see for event tech in the future?
I think there's so much opportunity for event tech used correctly. So, we're seeing all these like layoffs across these global tech companies. And listen, like, I'm not going to say that's right or it's wrong for layoffs to happen. I would never want someone to be laid off for without knowing why or whatever. But I think it's up to us as producers and planners and meeting professionals to be able to recognize where we need to use tech and where its benefits come from, and take advantage of that so that we can keep these companies in business, so that they can keep their employees employed in their companies. And a huge piece of it, and we've been using it, I've been using this kind of tech for a number of years, is on-site data capture. And there's some amazing companies, local and international, that do really, really well. And it's really tough to find a good data collection company, surveys and voice tools and everything else. But really, I think on-site conferences, trade shows, those companies are going to be the ones that shine. We used to have, back in 2000 and let's call it, I don't know, 2012, 2013, there was like the social media wall companies that you would be able to take your Instagram feed and connect it to the screen and have live feed showing. I don't know why that technology died, because I think it's so smart to show off what people are posting at the event, so people are seeing, hey, someone posted a cool picture of this activation, let me go check it out and see what's happening over there. Like, the fact that these kind of, there's the ebbs and flows of what is popular, what people are using. I think it's all about finding the right tools to get the message across of what your experience looks like from your attendee perspective and from your planning perspective, and utilize the best tools to your advantage.
Totally agree. And I remember we had our conference in 2012 in Puerto Rico, and we had our scholarship students tasked with, everybody got a selfie stick, which was just a new thing, and their role was going within the audience in San Juan and posting selfies on our social media walls, which you could see across the entire venue on all the screens. People were like, oh yeah, let me hop in there. That created such a buzz. I don't know why we are not doing that, something like that anymore, because it really, if you want that engagement, and sometimes when something is new, it's fun, but if it's really good, why not keep it? So that is as much as I'm going to say about that. And hopefully we can have those discussions ongoing and try and keep event tech companies and our colleagues and peers employed in future. And we don't regress to the times when we were being very low tech. Nothing against low tech, but you can, when used smartly, I'm sure everybody would benefit, including the delegates as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for all of that, and I'm sure you are happy for people to connect with you via your LinkedIn profile, which is just streaming in linkedin.com/n/Evan Babins. So please feel free to connect with Evan if you want to know more and want to continue this conversation, because this is just a teaser and hopefully inspired some more discussions. And before we get going, I just wanted to hear from you, since we are on Hello America's What's Cooking. What is your favorite food, recipe, restaurants, anything you want to share?
So I'll tell you a very, very quick story. In 2017, I was working at another agency. Very last minute, I got booked to travel to Munich for an event. It was over my birthday. It was like literally we booked the flights like 2 days before an event. It was so crazy last minute. My favorite food in the world, dessert, is Reese's Pieces chocolate, Reese's Cups, any kind of Reese's is my favorite. So my wife was at home, she was working, and I came home from being in Munich over my birthday, and our apartment, like our condo, was like decked out, and she decorated it all. She was at work when I got home from my flight, and there was like a sign on the table that said, look in the fridge. And I opened the fridge door, and she had made me this like 4-level Reese's cake, and it was like the best cake ever. So, shout out to Reese's, shout out to my amazing wife who did that when I was traveling over my birthday. So to answer your question, Reese's in any shape or form is probably my favorite food. In any manner, any preparation, I'll take it all.
Oh, such a big shout out to your wife. She knows you well and has done a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. For anybody who would like to join me in future as a guest, please feel free to email me at xenia.p@ecaworld.org. And our next week's guest will be Sean Chang, who's also based in Canada, just like yourself. And he will be talking with us a little bit about new event revenue strategies for 2023. So hopefully we will have a lot of people joining us for that as well, and prepare for the year to come just before the holidays. Thank you again, Evan. It's been such a great pleasure having you.
Thank you.